happening, Awesemo baseball fans? How'd your night go last night? A little bit of a good one for me. I am back here with you. I'm Terry. I'm here with Gundacker, and we're going to go through the entire MLB DFS slate. We can do it on a little bit better pace tonight. Calmer, 7-game kind of a slate. We're not going to have to slog through 13 games and figure out our top stacks and all of that. We're going to figure out our top stacks for sure. We're going to go game by game, take a nice leisurely pace through this one. Gun, how you feeling, pal? How's your Saturday going? How we feeling about this slate that we're dealing with here today?
Your chat. Don't let this dude be humble. Hold on, man. You only get to hit first in a big field tournament a couple times a year if you're lucky. Enjoy it, man. It's almost feel better to win first than it is, the money secondary, right? So shout out to Terry. Definitely. Chat, hype in chat for Terry, binking the 555 on FanDuel yesterday. I was hunting him, and I was telling him I was one Brandon Crawford homer away, and I don't know that you could I could explain how good and bad that probably would have felt. So I was low-key kind of relieved that I didn't. But congrats to Terry. Chat, hit the thumbs up. Get Terry 100+ likes off the rip for putting in the work and getting that bink.
Appreciate that, pal. And yeah, it would have, like I said, behind the scenes there, it would have definitely sucked, but it would have definitely taken a little bit of the pain out of it if it had been you that passed me. But I'm glad we held on there. Hopefully we'll get one for you. We'll do, like I said to you last night, we just got to do the exact same show. So sorry, guys, we're talking about yesterday's pitchers, actually. Same show over again, just for good luck's sake.
You ever seen Talladega Nights?
Yeah, of course.
You're Will Ferrell, and I was thinking that maybe I could win one tonight.
I don't know about that. Yeah, let's see if we can get Gun up there one. Maybe we'll go 1, 2, 3 tonight because we had Steve Buzzard up pal in third place last night on that big one too. So let's not let Steve go by the wayside, guys. If you hit those, if you hit something like that, tweet it at us at the Awesemo Hall of Fame. You get the shout outs on Twitter. I can vouch for the fact that it feels pretty good to have everybody giving you likes and congrats and everything. So good stuff. Let's move on to today though. That's in the past. That's yesterday. We grind on. That is what we're here for. So back to it. What have you done for me lately, McBride? Let's figure this stuff out. And let's dive into this real quick. Take care of some business off the top, guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Guns being encouraging. Appreciate that. Helps us out a ton. Helps you guys find out when the shows go live. We have some free content up on the site today. Looks like it is player projections for baseball, which is pretty handy for what we're talking about now. And MMA fighter rankings. Think there's a big fight coming up. I think it's tonight. So good luck to everybody participating in that. Check out these free stuff on the site. We're brought to you by OddsShopper, our sister site. If you're a sports bettor, get over there and check it out. We talk about it all the time. We'll get into some OddsShopper later on. We'll get into the free best bet of the day later on. But Gun, let's dive in headlong, buddy. To me, this looks like kind of a straightforward pitching slate. I'm seeing like 5 viable starters and a whole bunch of garbage. And it's pretty top heavy in terms of where we're going with some of the ownership. What are you seeing in terms of the overview for the pitchers? Do you see any more beyond like the 5 obvious playable names on the board here?
No, I think I give everyone 3 guesses to think of my top 3 pitchers. So I'm not getting too far creative past the obvious Kershaw, Eovaldi, Cole. But as I start, exploring ranges of outcomes, and yesterday I talked about, so kind of like Nestor Cortez, where I thought he was overpriced yesterday, but if he gets 20+, he could be in play. And heck, he was your pitcher, right? And would you think
he was?
Would you think 27 fantasy points from Nestor Cortez would bring 30K? Probably not on at least on FanDuel. So we kind of have a similar situation with Eric Lauer, where results lately have been good, but maybe he's overpriced. But man, it's a shallow player pool of pitching, so we just might have to overpay for some fantasy points at the P spot. But no, the top 3 for me: Kershaw, Eovaldi, Garrett Cole, and then we'd grab a couple of guys, but there's a lot of guys I'm not even touching tonight.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty similarly about the pitching, and we are going to go into this game by game, guys, but I think it does make sense to just kind of take a quick peek at that in terms of the full pitching slate. And yeah, it's those 3 guys, I think, in whatever order, site to site, no matter who you are, if you're ranking this slate out. And then beyond them, it's Kyle Gibson, it's Eric Lauer for me. And I don't need any shares of like a Carlos Hernandez going up against the Yankees. I think Dane Dunning's talented, but I'm way more on the Braves side of that one. Taijuan Walker, I don't think we're going to get the innings. Do you think we're getting more than 75 pitches, 5 innings out of Taijuan?
No, I think that's probably like the I don't know, ambitious expectation. They said that he's unlikely to get past 85, but even in 80, you really don't know what you're going to get from him. And he's not like somebody worth risking the world for. And the Phillies saved all their hits for today.
Yeah, sure did. Felt that one. That's the thing. Drives me nuts. you're winning, doing well. And the only thing I can think about is, goddamn, the Phillies got no hit tonight when they were one of my top end power things. I was mad Kyle Schwarber didn't hit me that home run. It's the brain works weird when you play a lot of DFS. Let's dive into this thing, and we'll go game by game here. We'll start off at the top so that Mike's work that he did on the graphics don't go to waste here. Otherwise, you and I could meander through this entire slate. But we've got the Braves and the Rangers facing off in the first game. We've got Bryce Elder on the hill for the Braves. We've got Dane Dunning going for the Rangers. We just kind of touched on it. It's a decently high total in this game. I'm not really inclined to roster either one of these pitchers. Do you have any love for any Dane Dunning going up against the Braves here? Or is it just kind of about the bats in this one?
Yeah, for me, it's all give me some bats, more so the Braves than the Rangers. But yeah, I'm not really interested in either pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to justify Dunning to somebody, 22.3% strikeout rate against a team that can strike out at an inflated rate, but one that features Ronald Acuna Jr. back at the top of the lineup, Matty Olson. It's just a murderer's row that he's walking into. He's not the hardest tossing pitcher in the world. He gets by with a changeup with some breaking stuff. It's just not a great spot for Dunning. I do believe he can have some decent games as an SP2 for us, but even 6,200 on DK as an SP2, I don't think we need many shares. If you wanted to take a couple tournament dart throws, do you think there's any probability of him being a reasonable SP2 play for super cheap and low ownership on the DK slate? Or we just kind of, even in large field tournaments, not really sweating it?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a lot more risk tolerance than I do at the pitcher spot, sure. Back end of the player pool, a couple shares just to make some lineups work, stretch some dollars, but never going to get the warm and fuzzies on that one.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for price, I guess the argument there is, if I'm looking at the top pitchers tool on DK, he ranks out a little bit ahead of Kyle Gibson, 12.8% probability of being a top two versus a 12.3 for Gibby. And Gibby's at a $9,100 salary compared to that 62. I guess if that's where you want to make your stand, but I just don't like it. I'd rather take the Gibson shares. I believe a little bit more in the proven talent. And, I think it's at popularity, given the fact that they're essentially the same offset in their leverage. I think it just makes sense to go to Gibson there and just figure out how to get different and cheap with bats. So for me, that's really where I'm looking. Talk to me about the bats in this one. You mentioned liking the Braves better, but let's talk about the Rangers real quick, going up against a righty, Bryce Elder here, who I don't think we think very much of in terms of his prospect for this one. Improving Rangers lineup. I've been rostering him here and there. Haven't really had a ton of success. A little bit of weight around a guy like Marcus Semien, a little bit of weight around a guy like Corey Seager on the FanDuel slate, because he only cost $2,900 somehow. $4,700. He's half is owned on FanDuel at 8.8%. Talk to me about the Rangers. Can you get to any of their bats, or are you just kind of taking little piecemeal shots?
Yeah, I actually am. I'm getting a little bit of exposure to the Ranger stack, and it's more so that I don't feel like I have to give up a ton of equity. We got them at a 5.4% chance of being top stack. They're a little overowned based on that metric, but you pop the lid open on a small slate, make it a little bit more hitter friendly. I can get some shares of Seager, Semien, Adolis Garcia. Past them, it gets a little uncomfortable. We're getting a new look, Nate Lowe leading off here. They have been trying Cole Calhoun. They've been trying different stuff pretty commonly. I was looking up Zach Rex in the minors. His minor league numbers looked okay for this split today. So I think there's a couple of fun names to click on to maybe divvy up and diversify the ownership levels of your lineup. But yeah, long answer short, yes, I'm getting to some Ranger stack, but it's because I don't have to give up much on a small slate to say I'm there in a positive hitting environment.
Yeah, and that's what I do like about the spot. There are some super cheap guys, particularly if you're looking at the back end of that lineup. Everybody from 5 back on the FanDuel slate, 2,300 or less, or excuse me, Nick Solak is in there at 2,400. Not exactly very expensive, and nobody going there. So if you wanted to grab just a couple offsets to ownership from the back end of that lineup, if you're stacking the high end of Rangers, and then you grab like a Cole Calhoun and a Banez, somebody kind of lousy like that. Hell, even Adolis Garcia for 3,900 and 3,400 is under 5% owned, cleaning up on both sites. So you can get pretty different with Rangers bats and fairly inexpensively. So I do like having those inexpensive ownership offsets on a slate where it's not the biggest slate in the world. There's some very chalky, very obvious spots. So we do need stacks like this as our secondary stacks as our way to offset ownership. Do you have a favorite bat from the Rangers that you would look to here? Like say you had to one off somebody from this team, who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, it's Corey Seager.
There you go. Yeah, I think that one jumps out, obviously. At 2,916.6% ownership on FanDuel, maybe I'll look to go in a different direction, in which case it would probably be either Adolis Garcia or Cole Calhoun and just try and pick off a low-owned, cheap home run. But I think Corey Seager's still the answer, especially for that price, regardless of the popularity. So I think building him into a lineup as a one-off just helps you get to something while rostering a superstar player at a discount. So I'm with you on that. Looking over at the Braves lineup, I wrote about this team on the site today. There's way too many words in my article again today, so everybody can read my hitter by hitter thoughts over there. Why don't you go through this lineup and just kind of take us on a tour of the Braves and what you like about this lineup today?
Yeah, Acuna leading off. That's what you want. Got to go up there and get him on both sides, 6K on DraftKings. But we know he has the talent. He's giving you that beautiful combination of power, speed, and hits for a solid average as well. So you can get that type of opportunity. We talked about popping the lid here in Globe Life. Just a really good spot. And if he gets on, Matt Olson's been one of the better expected batting averages of the in the league so far. So there's a good chance that one, he can touch home plate, and two, keep the hitter distracted with his stolen base propensity. It just gives better pitches for Olson to see. I love Riley as well. This is a really strong lineup, especially 1 through 5, 1 through 6. And I don't know, man, we kind of not necessarily joked about Travis Demeritte leading off yesterday, but he got us into almost a little league homer inside the Parker. So he's got some speed worth having, and he's really cheap access to the bottom of this lineup. And if he gets on, he can help you turn this lineup over. So through and through, I like a lot about this Braves lineup.
Yeah, and I tell you what, when I was writing about them today, I pulled him up because I was, a little light on what he had done in the minors, and a few reasonable seasons of power in the minors. Former first-round pick that I didn't really remember all that much about, but maybe you squeeze a little bit more out of him. He's a second baseman for 2,200 on FanDuel. He's an outfielder for $2,000 on DK. Hitting in the back of the lineup, I talk about this lineup all the time, particularly with Dansby Swanson, Adam Duvall. I like both of those hitters a lot, so I can get to the back end of this Braves lineup a lot of the time for cheap, whether I'm wrapping it back around to the top, just using it on its own, or as the back end of, like, if I went Ozuna, Albies, Duvall, Swanson, I wouldn't be completely out of my mind with some low on back end Braves. But really, yeah, for me, I want to have a ton of Ronald Acuna. Maybe it's just the fact that it's his first main slate back, but we're talking about a guy, when he went out last year, 360 plate appearances into the season, he was already at 24 home runs, 17 stolen bases. He had a 20% barrel rate, a 53.9% hard hit rate. He's just an outrageously good player. He had a 313 ISO, for God's sake, 57% better than average creating runs. There's nothing not to like about Acuna. $6,000 on DK and still 14% of the field getting to him. That's a little tough, but we got to go to it. I think there, Olson, Riley, Ozuna, Albies, got to love top to bottom in this lineup. So I am getting aggressive with the Brave stacks at the top of my sorting tool here. I've got my entries in already. I'm playing like 50 today, so I've got a big, overwhelming share of the Braves here, and I'm pretty stoked about it. I think it's a good spot to be in. Anything else from this game? Do you have a favorite bat that's not named Ronald Acuna out of that Braves lineup that you want to get into?
Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the ownership battle at third base. I feel like third base is pretty deep, especially on DraftKings. A lot of big, Rafi Devers, Austin Riley, just a lot of power. So if Austin Riley can fall to a decent ownership, and maybe just because of the position being as strong as it is, I kind of like him to be right in a good spot. Maybe pick up some RBIs behind Olson and Acuna, but yeah, probably Riley or Olson.
Yeah, and Riley's having a terrific year too. Bumped his hard hit, bumped his average dipped a little bit, but he's bumped everything else. The on bases up a little bit, the slugging's up a little bit in the early going. So just a monster player who already was a kid who hit 33 home runs last year, 227 ISO. So nice bat in the middle of that lineup. I'm with you. Let's move on to next game up on deck here. The hated Boston Red Sox traveling into Baltimore, playing the Orioles. Nathan Eovaldi, I think, is going to be very, very popular in everybody's lineups. He's on the hill for the Red Sox tonight, pulling like 50% ownership on DK, 25-ish percent ownership on FanDuel. On the mound for the Orioles, Spencer Watkins, kind of a gas can, kind of a pin cushion, kind of a target, I think, for some Red Sox bats here. Are you seeing Watkins any differently, and how much Nathan Eovaldi are you going to have in your life?
Yeah. So, hey, man, I'm doing a lot of FanDuel tonight, and I'm really tempted to go, cap 35% on the big three and just let it rip. And Eovaldi stands out for good reason. Orioles without Trey Mancini becomes an even more fruitful matchup to target for strikeouts, and a little less menacing offensively. It's just a really, really good spot for Eovaldi. I don't have concerns about him being stretched out. I know the game log says 72 pitches in that last outing, but it's because he was being so efficient. Got to 7 innings against Toronto. We've seen him hit 100. He's a workhorse for him, so I like him quite a bit. Certainly one of my favorite, especially points per dollar. And I have less pitch count concerns on him than I do Kershaw, who will probably be a little bit more trendy. So yeah, he's definitely one of the top 3 for me. It's just a really good spot.
And then anything for Watkins, any reason in the world that you could conjure up to roster this guy in this spot? I can't come up with one.
No, I couldn't even. No.
Yeah, not even for laughs. I think that's a target. Any ideas on maybe getting to some Orioles contrarian stacks? They're very cheap. They're very low owned. There are some capable bats in that lineup around a Cedric Mullins, who was a 30-30 guy last season. Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Austin Hayes. That's a decent 4-man at the top. I don't really love much about Rougned Odor. If you wanted to throw him as a cheap second base lefty with a little bit of power left maybe in that bat, maybe, and then the back end just totally falls off. But are you getting to any of the top 5 against a super popular Eovaldi here, or are you just kind of rolling with the pitch inside of it?
I hadn't planned on it, but then in the name of leverage is we have them at 2% chance of being the top stack, and they're less than 2% owned. So there is a path to giving up 1 or 2 lineups for an Orioles stack, especially to hedge a pitcher that you're going to have a lot of exposure to. So even if your pitcher completely implodes, you at least have some type of a stake that maybe you can take advantage of that. So I guess in that regard, yeah. And it would be the Mullins, Santander, Hayes, and Mountcastle for sure. And maybe every now and then like a Rougned or something like that. But it's a lot of pressure or a lot of interest if I had to be there on 1 through 4.
Yeah, and since nobody else is going there, since they're very affordable on both sites, there's no reason to just not use those, top premium hitters in that lineup if you are doing that. But I think I'm with you. I don't think there's any reason. Sometimes you see massive ownership, a 50% ownership share on a pitcher, and you say, all right, I want to grab some contrarian bats and attack that. I don't think this is the team or the split or the pitcher to do that with here on this one. So I'm much more inclined to roster a bunch of Eovaldi. I've got a bunch entered right now. A lot of Eovaldi, a lot of Cole, a lot of Kershaw, some Kyle Gibson, kind of like we talked about up top, a few shares of Eric Lauer, and that was it for me. So we'll ride the bats tonight. I do have some Red Sox in a lot of those. They were clicking in together well, particularly with Atlanta. I saw a lot of Boston-Atlanta combos on FanDuel for me, both 4-4s and 4-3s as I was building my lineups out. Are you getting to an aggressive amount of Red Sox bats, and which Red Sox bats do you like in this lineup?
Yeah, Spencer Watkins going to project pretty well for opposing power, especially right-handed power. JD Martinez must be really, really banged up for him to be scratched like that. So something to keep an eye on long-term, especially as rosters. I think they're going to lose 2 positions either on Monday, something like that. But still taking advantage of maybe finally a plus spot for Trevor Story. He's actually got one of the highest ratings in my bomb detector. I do always have a little, Coors Field historical asterisk in those numbers, but Spencer Watkins has been that fruitful for opposing righties. And then Rafi Devers batting second. I mean, you might be implied for 5 at bats here. Devers is certainly one of the better power bats in the league to chip in a chair for a homer here. So I like him batting second, extra implied at bats. Xander Bogaerts looks pretty good. He's got a 4+ rating in my bomb detector. And then I feel like every time we do a show, Terry, you always mention Bobby Dalbec. And Bobby Dalbec, he's one of those guys that has, he's kind of like Mike Zunino, right? 30+% K rate. Doesn't hit for an average, but when he makes contact, it's got like an 18+% barrel rate since the beginning of last year. If Spencer Watkins is going to come at you with a 9% strikeout rate, this is a good shot for Bobby Dalbec to get into one in the bottom of the order.
I had so much Bobby Dalbec at the top of my sort that I was actively sitting there saying, okay, that one's got him, that one's got him. Okay, this one doesn't grab that one and throw it in at the end of my lineup card here. Yeah, He's a big part of my life tonight, probably to uncomfortable degrees. He is rostered 14% by the field, so he's not exactly sneaky, but I love the spot for him here. He projects out nicely for me in both my home run model and in the projections, hitting toward the back end of that lineup, but I really don't care when I'm just kind of trying to bounce off the power that he's got there. 2,400 on the FanDuel slate. It's just too cheap for a guy who can hit 30 home runs this year. He hit 25 last year with a 254 ISO. You mentioned the barrel rate last year. It was 20.2%, one of the best barrel rates in the league. And the kid's going to walk more. He's going to get on base more. The eye's going to develop over time. So I'd like the hitter in general and for this slate. In the middle of the lineup, I think that you can get maybe a little sneaky with like an Alex Verdugo hitting cleanup, only single-digit ownership on both sites. Even Enrique Hernandez in the middle of that lineup. He's not my favorite hitter in the league, but he did hit 20 home runs last year, almost a 200 ISO. He's a useful hitter hitting fifth. So I don't love the Hernandez, Arroyo, Jackie Bradley, Bobby Dahlbeck, Kevin Plawecki configuration of the back of the lineup. But I think all of those guys are serviceable major league hitters, and none of them are really going to tank you if you've got a top end +1, +2 of those guys. So top to bottom, I can get into this Red Sox lineup, and I think there's enough ownership offsets. I love the spot for Rafi Devers, though. You mentioned that, and I want to end on that one. Leading my home run mark for the Red Sox here, one of the top contenders of the entire day. My home run model, I really like the spot there for Rafi Devers. Anything else to say about this one?
Stacking Red Sox.
You and me both, buddy. I will see you at the top of the standings again. Let's take a quick peek at what business we've left on the table so far. The Awesemo MLB plan. Presumably a lot of you have it, but tell your friends. It's a pretty good one. I can vouch for it. If you want to check out all of our different tools and content, guys, you can get on the Platinum plan for $29.95 a week. That's the one that includes everything at the site, all the sports we cover, whether it's esports, whether it's baseball, whether it's golf, whether it's NASCAR, anything top to bottom. We had a show for the NFL draft the other day. We've got guys doing tons of NFL season-long content now for the fantasy football channel. There's just stuff everywhere. So get on the Platinum plan. It's only $29.95 a week. If you want to just look at an individual sport, say you just want to play baseball, we've got individual sport plans, weekly plans, monthly plans, anything that you guys need, we have it on the site. You can jump in there. You get access to the top stacks, the top pitchers, all these different tools we talk about on the show. Fantasy Cruncher is an easy add-on for a little bit more money to any of the plans. We highly recommend it. It's our hosted optimizer at the site. But jump on there on one of the plans, guys. Email us at support@awesemo.com if you've got any questions. We'd be happy to help you out. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. We look forward to seeing you. And we'll hit the Odd Shopper one after we talk about this. Next game we have coming up on deck, Philadelphia Phillies with Mr. Kyle Gibson, another pitcher we've touched on early on here. He's kind of low owned. He's kind of an interesting leverage spot on this slate, going up against what I have to admit is a loaded Mets lineup and a very low owned Mets lineup at that. Taijuan Walker on the mound for the Mets. We mentioned the injury and pitch count concerns for Walker, going up against an equally loaded Phillies lineup on the other side that's equally under-owned. I think it's an interesting spot for both sides with the bats. I like the Gibby pitcher shares here. How are you seeing this game in general, Gun? And then let's just dive right into the pitchers.
Yeah, I'm buying in on Kyle Gibson more and more each start. So far this season, a 292 xFIP, 312 Sierra. The swinging strike rate is something I'm definitely keeping an eye on. It's at 16% on the season. So if you're going to miss bats, have a high ground ball rate. I'm interested. I will say it's a short sample size. There's a couple starts against the Rockies, so we might see that regress as we go forward. But I still think he's worth having some shares of as a stretched out guy. What I would be more scared of here is the fact that historically he's been stronger against righties in terms of xFIP and keeping the ball on the ground. And then the last 3 years against lefties, that's where the xFIP starts to go above 4.2, 4.5. The K rate drops. And this is a Mets lineup that's going to be featuring a lot of lefties. Brandon Nimmo, Lindor from the left box, Eduardo Escobar, Jeff McNeil. So I don't think this is a gimme matchup, and I certainly am not expecting a ton of strikeouts, but pitching pool is so shallow today that if all chaos broke loose for the aforementioned top three, I still think there's a reasonable range of outcome for Kyle Gibson to be a top 5 pitcher or even a top 3, top 4 pitcher there. So points per dollar and, you know, the position scarcity being what it is, I'm going to be in on some Kyle Gibson, even though like the heart doesn't love it. And I love that we have Kyle Gibson on DraftKings with a 12% chance of being a top 2 pitcher at 6% ownership. I mean, that's leverage, and leverage means everything. The more, even more so on a small slate like this. So yeah, give me some Kyle Gibson.
Yeah, I think that's your target for leverage. I mean, if you're looking at the DK board when we're looking for the top 2 probabilities, he's the only guy from that top list. Well, no, I should unwind that. Eric Lauer does have a little bit of ownership, a little bit of leverage there. Out of the top list, though, you're talking about Lauer, you're talking about Gibson as your ownership offsets. And, I think they're at least equivalent talents. Lauer's probably got the better matchup there. So maybe we can get to him, but he's another 500 on top of the price of Gibson. So for the savings, if you can buy a better bat with that 500, I think I'm happy to take the Kyle Gibson shares where I need him. On the FanDuel slate, he's somewhat similar. He ranks out with a higher probability than his ownership. It's almost double what his ownership is. So yeah, he ranks similarly to a Dane Dunning, but I don't think that's the same. I think that's a better spot for Kyle Gibson despite the stiffer opponent. So give me some shares of Kyle Gibson to find my ownership offsets. Everybody else is popular. And I just don't love Eric Lauer as a pitcher. We'll get into him in a couple of minutes, but are you getting, I assume since we talked about the potential limitations around Taijuan that we're leaving him on the table for the most part here. I don't have any shares of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, you look at healthy Taijuan last year and you feel like he's somebody you got to have anyway. And then we just deal with injury concerns. The fact that he has only thrown 30 live rounds. He didn't even have a AAA rehab start. They had like an extended spring training, like simulation type.
Yeah, to simulate a game on Monday.
Yeah. So like, I just have no confidence that, this man is ready for gameplay. Maybe I'll miss out on a big Walker game, but I'm going to sit this one out for Taijuan.
Yeah, and particularly on FanDuel, like if he was on this slate at 5,600 on the DK slate, maybe you throw some darts as an SP2. He's 8,400. I don't know what the 2.5% of people that we've got projected to be rostering him over there are really doing. I think we're getting 5 or less out of them. On FanDuel, you're not getting anywhere near the quality start. You just don't need them. So does that lead us into some Phillies bats, expecting, since it's Taijuan Walker to begin with, a limited version of Taijuan Walker, and then into a Mets bullpen that is okay, but has been shaky in spots. So does that lead us into any of these Philly power bats, any of the Philly top end here?
Yeah, like I said, they got no hit yesterday. They saved them all for today. And Taijuan Walker could be that guy, pal. There's still a lot of upside, a lot of power, a lot of potential in this Phillies bats, and maybe the field ends up being a little bit soured on them after last night. We're getting them at 1% ownership on DraftKings with a 5% top stack percentage. So any leverage is leverage I'll take on a slate like this, especially when that leverage involves guys like Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Castellanos. So absolutely sign me up for some Phillies today.
Yeah, I'm much happier getting to some, positively leveraged bats when they're star type players. That just always feels good, right? So regardless of who the pitcher is, but when you look across the mountain, it's Taijuan Walker in a game where he's only going to be out there for 4 innings. Yeah, sign me up. So I'm with you top to bottom in this lineup. They're pretty under-owned. Everybody in low single digits. The cost is there. A lot of 5,000s, high 4,000s on DK, mid-range 3s on FanDuel. You can figure it out with the value that we've got on this slate, between some of the secondary starting pitchers and some of the other spots. Any Mets for you going up against Gibson here? You mentioned the lefty problem around guys like Nimmo. You've got the switch hitters in Lindor and Eduardo Escobar. Even maybe a sneaky Dom Smith down toward the bottom of the lineup. Can I interest in a $2,100 Dom Smith home run with multi-position eligibility at the bottom of the lineup on FanDuel? Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe.
Hey, chip in a chair, right? That's it. Yeah, I don't have him as one of my core stacks right now. The thing with Gibson is while his strikeouts might reduce and whatnot to lefties, he still holds a pretty solid ground ball rate. And last year he was able to actually hold that hard contact to lefties down to 30%. So that's really, really good. So while I don't expect him to, strike out lefties like crazy, I'm not expecting a lot of damage to be dealt at the same time. So it's just kind of offsetting and hoping for a lot of mediocre results. So I could always one off a Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, guys like that, but I'm probably expecting more of a modest run total from this one.
Yeah, at least and I can get behind that idea of the outcome, like range of outcomes wise. This seems like one of those, 5-4 games. We didn't see any crazy outbursts. Maybe one guy hits a home run, but it was no major thing for DFS. Maybe a one-off pays off or something. So I might grab some, some Pete Alonso's as a one-off if I needed them. Some Lindors, some Martes, sure, as one-offs if I need them. But yeah, for me, lower priority in terms of stacking. I'm not sure how many Met stacks I ended up entering, but it wasn't many. Anything else before we talk about Odd Shopper real quick?
Nah. We got it.
Let's dive in. So if you guys haven't checked it out, obviously you're not listening when we're talking on all these shows, for one thing, because we have been promoting the Odd Shopper, our sister site. If you're not paying attention when you visit the site, it's right up on the top link of the tabs there on the right-hand side. You jump over to Odd Shopper. If you're looking for a bet, if you got it in mind, hey, I want to bet the under in the Mets-Phillies game tonight, hop over to Odd Shopper. With like 3 clicks, 30 seconds or less, you can find that bet. And you can not only find that bet and what the odds are, we're giving you the best possible version of that bet. That's where the shopping part of it comes in. So we're saying, hey, if you want to make that bet, don't make it over here at FanDuel, make it over here at Caesars, where you can get an extra couple of bucks on it, right? So we're figuring that stuff out for you. We're providing a parlay builder for you guys so you can get optimized parlays. We're providing an arbitrage tool now that identifies risk-free guaranteed profit bets. Not a lot of people are going to be telling you that you're getting risk-free guaranteed profit on anything in life, but we're putting it out there on Odd Shopper with our arbitrage tool. So guys, I cannot encourage you more. If you're making sports bets without this, you're doing it wrong. Go over to Odd Shopper, check it out. The link is down there in our description somewhere, so you guys can find it, but it's Odd Shopper with 2 S's in the middle. It's linked from the top of awesemo.com. Get in there, start making smarter bets today. We'll talk about the free best bet of the day in a little bit, but we've got some Yankees to talk about once again. It just, we said it yesterday. We're going to keep on saying it all season long. And this is the team. These guys are going to be at the top of DFS conversations all year long. They just have power. They just get on base. They score runs, and they're going to be doing it all season. So get used to it. They paid off nicely last night, but right now let's talk about the pitcher on the mound, because he's one of the top 2, one of the pocket pair of aces on the slate. Garrett Cole going up against a slap hitting but low strikeout rate Royals team. Carlos Hernandez on the hill for the Royals. I will not have any Carlos Hernandez in my life going up against the Yanks. Talk to me about Hernandez. Talk to me about Garrett Cole. What are we seeing?
Yeah, I'm playing Garrett Cole. I think it's fun and trendy to hate on him, but his metrics, I'll say the Detroit game was unacceptable, but hands down, past that, I easily forgive, Vladdy Jr. getting you, and that Cleveland game kind of showed you Garrett Cole is still Garrett Cole. He's one of the better arms in the world. So I'm gonna be loading up on some Garrett Cole tonight. One of my favorite 3 pitching options, and just a fun little Yankee observation. The last year or so, Higashioka has been his personal caddy, and his last start against the Cleveland Guardians was with Jose Trevino. And they're going to run that back here, and Trevino is regarded as one of the better pitch framers in all of baseball. So shaking it up a little bit is something that I'm going to be watching. So yeah, I'm definitely playing plenty of Garrett Cole tonight. Couple pesky strikeout guys in this Royals lineup: Nicky Lopez, Whit Merrifield, Carlos Santana. They're not going to feed you free Ks, but you can offset it with guys like Salvi, Hunter Dozier, Kyle Isbell. All those guys offer a pretty decent amount of strikeout potential. And then, like I said, position scarcity. There's really 3 guys I think could get me 25, 30 fantasy points on DK, and Garrett Cole is absolutely one of them. So I'm in on some Garrett Cole tonight, and no Hernandez, just like you said. I'm gonna sit that one out.
That one was more of a target for sure. Mike just popped up, a producer Mike in the background doing a killer job, just popped up a note. Jonathan India scratched. If you guys are building Reds lineups out there, we'll get to that game in just a minute, but definitely prioritize getting him out of any stacks that you've already built out there. Yeah, and as far as Garrett Cole goes, I'm going to have a ton of them on the FanDuel slate. He ranks out as my top projected pitcher ahead of Kershaw in this matchup in my projections. It's, give and take on the site. I think we do still have Kershaw up at the top, but to me, they're 1-2, and the caliber is pretty similar. So I don't really begrudge anybody shares of either one of them. I'm leaning more into the Cole side of things, and I'm getting him with a ton of Yankees, getting him with a ton of Braves and Red Sox stacks. He's underpriced on the FanDuel site for one thing at 9,800. That's cheap for Garrett Cole. 10,000 on DK, totally playable there. How much are we getting to Yankees bats? Because they don't look incredibly popular on the DK slate. Only Josh Donaldson pushing 10%. No Aaron Judge in the lineup tonight. They're more popular on FanDuel because they've got some broken prices around guys like Joey Gallo at only 2,600. Gleyber Torres still only 2,600. So they've got a few guys priced in putting them in the mid-teens, the slightly above 10 area, but still easy enough to put together. Are we going right back to the well with Yanks?
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is an Aaron Judge discount in terms of ownership.
It seems like
we got him at 12% chance to be in a top stack with 5.5% ownership. You don't need to tell me to get positive leverage on the Yankees. I'll do it. Obviously, Aaron Judge is a massive part of that offense, and he's so good. But this is still a really solid lineup, and it's a pitching staff that is very beatable. Anthony Rizzo is the second, he's basically Barry Bonds. So I want all of that. I don't love Donaldson batting second, but I'm hoping for some good stuff out of him. It's still a really, really strong lineup, and even Gallo's put the bat on the ball lately. So sign me up for the Yankees here, especially at this ownership, especially with this much positive leverage.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going right back to the well with Yanks, and I love that you can get to Anthony Rizzo with 4.1% ownership on the FanDuel slate, hitting third, 3,900. The Barry Bonds of the first row maybe, but he's getting them over the wall, right? So that's all that really matters. Aaron Hicks hitting sixth, under 10% on 2,500 on the FanDuel slate, under 2% for 3,900 on DK. I can get into that. I can get into some Gallo. Still a big believer in all the power in that bat. So 1 through 7, at least, I'm good with the Yankees here. Would you include any IKF or any Jose Trevino in the back end of lineups? Like, is there any real reason to get to those guys? You're kind of skipping them.
I do think Trevino could be like a pinch hit risk if the game got out of hand, or if the game didn't get out of hand. But in that case, the stack's dead anyway. So I probably wouldn't overthink it. But IKF's been getting on base, making stuff happen, being aggressive on the base pass. So if he could turn that lineup over, he's batting over 300 on the season. Every now and then he might take off here. But I think the optimal outcome for IKF in tournaments you probably need a multi-hit day, but that's not to say we couldn't get a timely double out of him and then maybe a ribeye potential connecting him to like a DJ LeMahieu, the next batter up. So yeah, a little bit of IKF, but not much.
Yeah, and he's another guy with positional flexibility on the FanDuel slate, which is at least useful there, right? You get him third base, shortstop, you get Glaber shortstop, second base, and then you get DJ with 3 position eligibility, which is just absurd. 3,600 at the top of the lineup for DJ LeMahieu with second, first, and third base eligibility, and he's owned only 6.4% of the time. And he remembered how to hit this year, and he's not hurt. Sign me up for that too. So love the Yankees here, at least 1 through 7. I agree. We can work in some IKF around the edges. Any love for any Royals stacks, contrarian Royals coming back against Cole? We do know every now and then he leaves a couple over the plate, gets into a little trouble. Hitter like Salvi Perez, maybe a Carlos Santana could go deep, but it's not a power-packed lineup. They're more limit the strikeout, slap hitter, get on base via the hit tool focused. Any love for any stacks of these guys, or are you just kind of skipping over them, expecting the big game from Cole?
So it's kind of that thought process earlier with like, if I'm going to be so high on Eovaldi, Kershaw, Cole, it makes sense to throw a couple hedge stacks in there in case it all went bad. But the thing about the Yankees, their bullpen's so good that even if Cole imploded, they still cut the game in half, throw you some upper echelon arms, a Loizaga, Clay Holmes, guys like that. So it's not like Cole getting dropped would necessarily mean great things for the Royals. So I'm a little pessimistic about that. But in terms of one-offs, Garrett Cole, he'll challenge you with this fastball, and that sometimes can get turned around. He has one of the highest hard hit rates so far in terms of StatCast of 44 events. He has a 41% hard hit rate with a 9.1% barrel rate. So he can get got, and maybe a Salvador Perez or someone like that can turn one around. But yeah, I'm with you. There's not necessarily a team I look for a lot of power, a lot of ISO. Just Salvi, I guess, as a one-off.
Yeah, he'd be the main target there. If I was stringing a stack together, it would be, the obvious names, Whit Merrifield, Andrew Benintendi, Salvi, Carlos Santana, maybe a Bobby Witt. But I'm not going out of my way for these guys. Maybe Edward Olivares gets very, very sneaky from the bottom of the lineup and gets into one. But I don't think this is the pitcher that we really want to go hunting for that with. So not much love for the Royals stack here for me. Let's take a quick look over here. We'll move on. We've got the Cubbies game up next. Cubbies and Brewers. Cubbies with Justin Steele, a lefty on the mound, going up against the Brewers. We've got some right-handed power in that Brewers lineup. Hunter Renfroe came to mind. Definitely a nice little night from him for me last night. But we've got Andrew McCutchen in there, Willie Adames, a lot of righty pop. Eric Lauer on the mound seems pretty slate relevant for this one, getting a lot of popularity, 9,600 on DK, 92 on FanDuel. A little pricey for a pitcher like Lauer, but going up against his Cubs lineup, I think you kind of got to like it. And he's one of the positively leveraged players from the top of the board in terms of pitching. So are you getting to Lauer? Can you talk me out of shares of Lauer? What are you doing with him here?
So like I said, it felt a lot like Nestor Cortez last night, where I think a couple of, I don't want to say outlier-esque games, but a pitching above average maybe has increased his price point. And I think he is overpriced because of that. with that said, I don't think he's out of the question to drop 20 plus fantasy points on DraftKings. So I would keep him in the mix here. I think, that Sunday night game, literally his career best game. I think he got a little bit of a help here and there from Angel Hernandez. You know what I mean? So 13 Ks.
Right, that was a
little crazy. So I'm expecting obviously a little bit more, maybe a strikeout per inning, a little bit more than that. So at best, he's probably like number 5, number 6 on my board. But in the interest of diversifying your 100, 150, he'd make the back end. But I do think we could say he's overpriced. But you mentioned, we only have a couple of opportunities at positive leverage at pitching. We talked about Kyle Gibson having some leverage. Well, there's a little bit of meat on the bone there on Eric Lauer as well. We have him at 27.2% chance to be a top 2 pitcher with 23% ownership. So it makes sense to play him, but I do think he's fundamentally overpriced.
So thinking in terms of Eovaldi, Gibson, and Lauer, before we continue on through this game, for one of those guys to win you a slate, do both Cole and Kershaw have to bust? Or, and by bust, turn in an okay start, but they've given up 4 or 5 runs. FanDuel 27, 28, 30 point start as opposed to the 50s and the 60s. Do those guys have to completely bust, or do we have the potential to get a 40, 50 point FanDuel game out of an Eovaldi, a Gibson, or a Lauer?
I think at their ownership they would probably have to bust. Yes, probably bust because. And also on DK Lauer is just like $400 to $600-700 away from a Cole and Kershaw. Right. So even if he scored the same as those guys, it's not like he's that much more likely to be optimal at these ownerships with the way baseball pricing is. So I would probably say that you'd have to have you probably would have to have no quality start at the very minimum for Kershaw and Cole for Lauer to be there.
And that's a good way to look at it. Yeah, the lack of not hitting that quality start because of everything that entails. And that's, it's kind of the opposite of what we were looking at yesterday, where a couple of the premium pitchers were in very tough spots. And it seemed like, all right, those guys won't necessarily put up the monster start here. So maybe we get more into the Nestors of the world. And like you mentioned, I got Nestor in only 27 FanDuel points, but it was enough because of, the way that lineup came together. It's not like he afforded a major discount. When you can do that with guys like a Gibson, like an Eovaldi that are at a discount on a slate like this, I think maybe that can help you get there and offset some of that. But for this one, I'm seeing it much more in the Cole Kershaw realm as far as the most likely guy to be at the top of the board at the end of the night, and probably need to have one of those guys in your lineup on DK, I think, to win tonight. So taking a look at is after that little detour there through some pitching strategy, let's take a look at some of these bats. Are you getting to any Brewers stacks against Justin Steele? And by contrary, are you getting to any of the Cubs bats? There's some oddball power bats, at least in that Cubs lineup. Any love for any of the Cubbies or the Brewers here?
Yeah, this is a game that gave us some runs last night, especially the Brewers side. I know a lot of Brewers fans are happy to see that they could score runs, much less flirt with double digits. And it makes sense. Justin Steele has been a pure contact guy. So if you're going to put the ball in play, dare guys like McCutchen, Adames has, I think he's had like 4 homers in the past week, something like that. He might have been more. He's got a hot stick right now. Hunter Renfroe looks really, really good. So I do like the Brewer stack. And then inversely, Eric Lauer, I think if we're going to call out some regression and look a little into the numbers over the, last 3 years of sample size versus 4 games of sample size or whatever it is this year, there's room to believe that, he's not going to be as pristine as maybe he looked on Sunday night. And if he's going to be closer to a contact guy or a fly ball guy, Patrick Wisdom batting third is a lot of power with, maybe 5 chances to swing the bat and make contact. So I think that's a great opportunity for an extra implied at bat for him. Suzuki's up there. Wilson Contreras, I think, is a really good hitter. And Nick Madrigal is almost impossible to strike out. So I think I don't have to stretch to get too creative in justifying some Cubs shares. So I do have some Chicago in my CSV right now. And there's a little bit of leverage to be had on them as well. So you don't have to give up too much equity just to be there and maybe take advantage of, 24% of the field playing Eric Lauer.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of interesting about that spot. You mentioned all the power in a guy like Patrick Wisdom. You got Frank Schwindel could hit one out of the park for you. Ian Happ, I love his bat and from both sides of the plate. Suzuki's in there, so you can get a little bit sneaky. They're not all that expensive. They're very low owned, and you are attacking a pitcher that I think we both expect to come down. A guy who's overpriced, so people are building flawed lineups potentially already with him. Now you're throwing some bats at his 25% ownership, so that's one that could potentially connect from a game theory perspective. I love the look of the Brewers bats here. I'm getting a lot of them again today going up against Justin Steele. You mentioned all the hitters that I want, but Hunter Renfroe in particular looks awfully good cleaning up there. Very nice home run mark for him. Only 2,800 on the FanDuel slate, pushing 20% ownership. He's under 10% owned on DK though, 3,700. So I love that spot for Renfroe. Another big game from him in the top end of this lineup. So I'll have some Brewers there. Let's take a look at the Awesemo best bet of the day. Awesemo Best Bets on Twitter and all your various social media handles, I would imagine. We have a free premium bet posted on that handle right now. Go follow that account now and turn on notifications so that you're alerted when the free premium daily best bet is posted. Tonight's bet is insert player team and to bet type from insert expert. You guys can go check that out on Twitter because I didn't realize that was in here and I'm not sure what it is, but that'll be the fun surprise and that'll give you a great opportunity to follow at Awesemo Best Bets on Twitter right now. So go check that out. Make sure you subscribe to our Best Bets package as well, guys. It's on the site. We call it the Best Bets Discord because it's got its own dedicated channel in our Discord area where guys like Alex and Steve and Ben are talking about these bets. They make dedicated picks every day and we give a nice list. We're providing an ROI tracker sheet for everybody. So you can jump in there. You can check out our results. B, you clear out our results. Now you've got your own little ROI tracker to track your bets. Pretty slick little package there. So at Awesemo Best Bets, free bet of the day. Go check it out. All right, let's move on to Coors Field. I think that's the next one up. It is. So we got the Cincinnati Reds. We lost Jonathan India off the top of this lineup. He was pulling in 30+% ownership. I haven't grabbed the new version of the lineup yet, but let's talk pitchers or not. Is there any reason to talk about Overton or Chad Kuhl here? I can't think of one.
Yeah, I really don't have a reason for Overton. I could say if like you could make a case for Kuhl and I wouldn't think you're crazy, but I think process wise, I don't need to pitch Chad Kuhl on a Garrett Cole, Kershaw, Eovaldi slate. So yeah. I'm not, especially on FanDuel, but like I could understand a case, this Reds lineup somehow found a way to get worse. And yeah, so
they're awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if Kuhl was 5,000, 5,200, something like that, he's 79 on DK. Like that's just, I think that's just aggressively high, even for those dart throw oddball SP2s. So for me, I agree with you. Like if you really wanted to push it, I could begrudgingly say, all right, fine, a couple shares, but it's not a real good spot for me. These Reds are still ridiculously cheap. Taking India takes their most expensive hitter off the top of the lineup. Everybody else is like $3,000 or below on DK, mid threes on FanDuel, hyper affordable, pulling in ownership. Are you going to any Reds? I almost full faded them yesterday in my handful of lineups that I threw in. I leaned into the Rockies bats a little bit. We talked about the Rockies bats. They're pulling some ownership as well today. They were a bigger leverage play yesterday, kind of an ownership offset yesterday. Are you getting to either one of these teams, or is it kind of a day where you're looking to get away from Coors?
Yeah, I'm back on the Rockies side here. Rockies is what had me looking up at you. I had a 4% Ryan McMahon and a 2% Elias Diaz. So even in that Rocky stack, we can see a lot of eyes look at like Blackman and CJ Cron and guys like that. And there's still some merit in grabbing the secondary, tertiary bats, especially considering that this Reds bullpen is something that really scares me. So yes, on the Rockies, I'm a lot less excited about the Cincinnati Reds on both sides. I mean, this is double ownership versus top stack percentage on DraftKings, and I might just pull the plug on all of my full 4 or 5 man stacks for the Reds, and I'll leave in like the two the two player stacks, the 5-2s or whatever. But I think I'm a full fade the full stack on the Reds at that ownership.
I think that makes sense. And it's not, I mean, you don't even get like the discount on the ownership on a guy like Moose because everybody woke up to the fact that he was hiding in the back of this lineup for $2,000. Not that he's really done much, but 2,000, he's pulling in a 27.7% ownership share. Adames Garcia, 23.1% ownership share. Nick Senzel, 20.5. I mean, it's just difficult to justify some of these names at those ownership shares. So yeah, a couple shares of maybe a Joey Votto, Tommy Pham, Tyler Naquin, but not much else here. On the Rockies side of things, though, you mentioned the lefties in Charlie Blackmon, in Ryan McMahon. I like the power in Sam Hilliard, so I like those three bats. Dom Nunez, lefty at the bottom of the lineup as a catcher, is an interesting DK play. As far as some of the righties in this lineup, Connor Joe, Randall Grichuk, CJ Cron is just destroying baseballs this season. I kind of like the way this lineup comes together through all those guys. Are you concerned at all about the weight of public ownership? I feel like maybe we're a little bit light, even though these are inflating toward the 20% range on both sites. I feel like these guys are going to be pretty popular in this spot.
Yeah, and it's hard not to be, but right now I think I'm pretty level. I think I've had about 13% Rockies full onslaught stacks. So yeah, I guess I'm undercutting a little bit. But it's just like I trust the Rockies more than the Reds.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is, it's weird to say because it's not, historically the last few years, a good lineup, but I definitely think this configuration of this lineup better than that configuration of that Reds lineup for sure. We'll see how it works out over time. Favorite bat not named CJ Cron from the Rockies?
Ryan McMahon, you got no chance.
Love that call. Yeah, I would say Sam Hilliard's kind of owned. I thought he would be a little bit more sneaky. Maybe get sneaky with a right-handed $5,600 Connor Joe off the top for only 11.5% ownership is just a weird way to get different with it. Anything else from this game? We talked about the clunky pitchers. We talked about both stacks. Anything else you want to call out from Coors before we move on?
I mean, just to double down here, so I have no interest in pitching Chad Kuhl, but through a couple starts, he's got almost a 16% swing and strike rate. And the Sierra, the xFIP are a lot better than we expect from Chad Kuhl, and the batted ball data has given us a low hard contact rate. So it's not like he's been, as bad as we know he can be. And this is literally the worst team in baseball, the Cincinnati Reds. So that's selling me more on just kind of full fade in that 30% ownership.
Yeah, I just don't need to be there on those Reds. If they get me, they get me. That's one of those ones where, all right, fine, 30% of the slate got me, and I just am not going to be at the top standings and put my phone away and go watch a movie or something. I'm fine with that here. Looks like we got a little super chat from Uzi Azizov, frequent viewer of the various shows on the site. Thank you, Uzi. We appreciate it. He's asking, do you want to go Garrett Cole with a Dodgers stack or Eovaldi with a Braves stack? No site given, but give us your thoughts on both sites.
I love them both. Like you're talking about two, like a combination of some of my favorite plays tonight. I guess the side context would be a little bit. I just thinking out loud from
Uzi chimed in and said it's on FanDuel.
So FanDuel. We got
Cole with the Dodgers or Eovaldi with the Braves on FanDuel.
Man. I probably lean Eovaldi. I think Eovaldi is kind of underpriced. I think his pitch count's fine. I think the propensity to get a quality start is fine, and then it opens up quite a bit of salary. But it's not a snap call. I love both sides of that.
Yeah, I don't think you're really going very wrong with either side of that. I think if you're creative enough, you can probably put the Eovaldi side and Braves side of that together with some Dodgers if you wanted to. I think I had a few of those in my lineups that went in, so I would definitely play around with that. But yeah, you're not going wrong either way there, Uzi. And then leading into that Kershaw game, we had Skimmer in chat saying Kershaw is good for at least 4 strikeouts for what that's worth. Going to be break the record tonight for real, I guess is FR, whatever that means. He's going to be amped up for tonight. He's got the family in the stands and et cetera. So I guess for the first time this year, Clayton Kershaw is actually going to try to pitch well because his family's going to be there, or he's just Clayton Kershaw and he's really damn good and we should be including him in rosters. How much Kershaw are you getting to? Talk to me about the matchup for Kershaw here, Gun. And are you going to, for any reason whatsoever, have any of whoever Bo Brisky is in your life tonight?
No, I'm Brisky, but for Kershaw, I'm a little on the edge of comfort here because I'm not sure how long his leash truly is. And strikeout records are fun, but if Dave Roberts ain't gonna let you chase a perfect game, you think he cares about you getting a strikeout record? And they seem like there's a plan to stagger him. And I was reading excerpts and talking about it earlier in Discord. I think May is when he's going to start going deeper and deeper. So I do think there's a potential chance that his pitch count and his leash is not worthy of this ownership, and maybe I go a little bit different in that regard. But man, he's got a lot of stuff going in his favor. I mean, it's very rare you see a minus 360 favorite out there, so we can almost, we could feel really good at implying him for the win. But I'm just really wondering about that 6th inning viability, and that 6th inning could be the difference between him, Cole, and Eovaldi, and what actually truly ends up being optimal tonight. So with that said, I'm sitting on about 34% Garrett Cole right now, or excuse me, 34% Clayton Kershaw right now. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not worried about his leash.
Yeah, the depth is definitely a bit of a challenge. I'm glad you mentioned the Dave Roberts thing with the chasing the perfect game, because Dave Roberts understands that a manager is paid to win the World Series and nothing else, and that's what he's out there to do. So he doesn't care about these individual records much as fans might. Dave Roberts made the right decision in pulling Clayton Kershaw earlier in the season, and he's not going to leave him in to chase a strikeout record. 60% ownership on DK, 30% on FanDuel. I think both numbers are justified on talent in this matchup, taking on the heavy strikeout Tigers. Do you have any concerns about the Tigers? Maybe some of the right-handed pop in that lineup around like a Torkelson, Javi Baez, Robbie Grossman is a switch hitter. These are not inspiring names necessarily. Jonathan Scope with a little bit of limited power, not fearsome names, but any concerns about any of those guys, lefty righty against Kershaw here, and any love for going to Tiger stacks, maybe get into the bullpen, any of that?
Yeah, I mean, we got a few shots tonight where high power, high K guys are getting more implied at bats. Javi Baez batting second with his 260 plus ISO against lefties. Yeah, he's got a 30% K rate, but just got to make contact one time. And I think that's something I would be looking for, is to see if for as far as fearing Kershaw getting, some damage allowed. So Baez would be one I'm looking for. Grossman is, man, I'm not running from him. Torkelson, he's one of the top prospects in their organization that certainly has some pop. Jonathan Scope is another guy, but I'm not going to let the matchup. It's not the matchup that I'm fearing. It's the pitch count. But I wouldn't be shocked if we got a Baez homer in this matchup.
Yeah, I think I saw a couple oddball Tiger stacks creeping around the edges in my sort when I went through it and put some lineups in. Much more on the Kershaw side of things. We talked about how massive a favorite the Dodgers are here, and part of that for me is borne out in my home run model. Everybody in this lineup is over a 10, which is the magic number in my home run model today, which is a little bit bananas. They're just basically bending the model and breaking it in half. Max Muncy was my home run pick for the day in my article today. Are you seeing the Dodgers any differently? I mean, there's a decent amount of public weight on them, and they're very expensive, but they look spectacular here. Any reason not to go to Dodgers bats here?
No, it's the Dodgers. every single day we stack Dodgers, man. You just have to do it, and whatever happens. Still a little bit of leverage in our top stack tool, and any leverage on a small slate like this, especially when one team is grabbing 30%, man, I'll happily be double the field in Dodgers tonight with that lineup.
Yeah, anytime somebody comes in, I don't care if the game's in Coors, and they say, hey, you can have the Rockies and the Reds, and I'll give you the Yankees, the Braves, and the Dodgers. I'll take the Rockies and the Reds, and I'll give you the Yankees, Braves, and Dodgers. Just take that bet. Just take the Yankees, Braves, and Dodgers every time. And that's what the field is giving us tonight. So I'm going to be loading up on those teams. I'll have some Red Sox like we talked about, have some Brewers around the edges. And if Coors gets me, it gets me. I'm pretty fine with doing that here tonight. So we got a super chat $4.99 from Deacon 2, the legend. Deke is saying, what's up, guys? I have a 4-3 stack on FanDuel with Braves and Brewers. He has 3,000 left for third base. He wants to know if he should go to Moustakas or for Patrick Wisdom for 100 less. Moose or Wisdom with 3,000 left to spend on FanDuel.
For me, it's Wisdom, man. That dude is a dangerous swing. If he makes contact, there's a really good chance it goes out. Now, the caveat is he's got to make contact, and that's easier said than done for him. But when he does, that barrel rate's kissing 17%, and being third in the lineup versus eighth, we can kind of expect 4 or 5, maybe even 6 cracks at it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you're also talking about, for me, the absolute tiebreaker here is you're talking about a 1.5% owned Patrick Wisdom going up against, again, it's Eric Lauer. It's not like he's facing Cole or Kershaw here. It's Eric Lauer. I have no issues with that, and I greatly prefer that to the Moustakas one for tournaments there. So that's definitely, I think, your play there, Deke. So we appreciate the super chat, buddy. Good luck with that one. Guys, if you have any other questions, we got 5 minutes left in the show. Gunn and I can definitely chew that time up. But if you're wondering anything specific, throw it into the chat, and we'll try and catch it and answer it here. I will take a peek over in our premium Discord, see if anybody's asked anything over there, or it will freeze my camera as I'm trying to do it. Not sure. And doesn't seem like anybody's asking anything overly interesting there. Gunn, talk to me about the bomb detector. What's the old home run model, the old bomb detector scene here today?
At the tippy top. First of all, can I just say the lack of likes on this one is ridiculous. Like, chat, 200 likes should be no problem. You guys are the most talented chat in all of YouTube, and you guys didn't hit that like button. What are we doing? What are we even doing? Terry, 30,000 reasons to hit that like button from Terry last night. Do better, chat. Do better. Bond Detector loves Trevor Story. Spencer Watkins and his righty splits, man. They're going to promote all the Red Sox at the top. Trevor Story, Bobby Dalbec, Kike's up there. My boy Patrick Wisdom's up there. So a lot of fun names up there. A little less than, some names maybe you wouldn't expect. I also have Salvador Perez up there. I mentioned Garrett Cole will allow an elevated hard hit rate. So he gets right at the edge of that magic number. And then let's see, any crazy name up here that we wouldn't expect. No, your boy Kevin Plawecki's up here, and Sam Hilliard's up there as well. So, but the Hilliard stuff's on a small sample size on the opposing pitcher.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be doing with Hilliard there. So on my end, I mentioned the Dodgers are just overloaded at the top of the lineup. Little small sample of the pitcher going up against them as well. Then we're getting into some Red Sox. You mentioned Story. I'll go back with Devers from the top of the board, followed by Bobby Dalbec, who we talked about. Big part of my life tonight. Hunter Renfroe from the Brewers, definitely cleaning up lefty righty. Still too cheap on FanDuel. Definitely going to have a ton of him. Some Kyle Schwarber going up against Taijuan Walker, potentially against the Mets bullpen after a short outing there, along with some of the rest of the Phillies with Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper following him right there. And then the guy sitting at the last guy above 10, Mr. Ronald Acuna Jr. pulling in a 10.05 in his second game back. So I got to throw that out there. Sal Perez sitting just below the magic number of 10 at 9.61, but I like that spot as well going up against our guy Cole. So we're pushing up to 7:02. Let's see if we've got one last question here. I'm just going to read what Skimmer says. Skimmer in the chat is talking to Michael Knack, and he says, early season slump does not equal washed. His walks and strikeouts are the same, just not being aggressive enough when the pitch is in the zone. I'm not entirely sure who they're talking about, but
I'm not either.
Yeah.
Cole?
Not immediately apparent. I was hoping it would be right here. Not really sure. Talk to us though, real quick, Gunn. What I was going to get into with that is talk about sample size. Like in the early part of a season, when we're seeing these outlier performances, these little things that get wonky in stats. And when you look at like the back of a card, just talk about that a little.
Yeah, this season more so than ever, we got a lot of moving variables, a shortened spring training. Pitchers historically get there before hitters do. There's the dead ball saga. There's colder temperatures. So there's a lot that can inflate what a pitcher has done so far. And that's why, Eric Lauer, for example, or even Kyle Gibson, guys like that are sustaining double-digit swing and strike rates and stuff like that right now. But we have 3 years of sample size. So usually I'll look at if they are switching up their pitch mix, if their velo has changed, spin rates changed. If everything's usually the same or around the same, then I'm projecting regression. And that's kind of the situation with guys like Lauer. And it's not to say Lauer is going to be a gas can, but he's probably not going to be a 13 strikeout per game type of guy. So yeah, sample size is very key, but also appreciation of the sample size, whether big or small, especially the small. It's easy to get carried away with small sample size because percentages are very inflated or deflated on small sample size. So do the due diligence and understand where a guy or a pitcher's at so far after 3 or 4 games, but also cross-reference the other stuff, the pitch types, the velocities and stuff like that.
We're looking for something tangible, something we can point to say, all right, he didn't used to do that. Now he's doing that. So maybe this is real. And then we can watch things. But when you don't see that, yeah, you're kind of probably just dealing with something wonky like the Angel Hernandez game there with the strikeouts. So guys, that's bringing us up toward the end of the show here. Wish everybody a lot of luck tonight. Hopefully we get a couple big winners out there. Tweet them our way if you win big, even if you win small. Any wins, we love seeing them come through. Definitely feels good to get them. So send those our way. We've got no more content coming up today, but if you're joining us tomorrow, we've got, let's see what's on the board here. We've got the MLB live before lock early morning, 9:45 to 10:55 to catch that early slate. We've got NBA deeper dive at 11 a.m., NBA live before lock at noon, and then NASCAR live before lock at 2. So full day of action starting pretty early tomorrow. Wake up with us in the morning, and we'll catch you tomorrow, guys.